Hello, Slicey Dicers. This is Brian with another knife review for you. Today, we have the CRKT Bona Fide. It is brand new for 2021. Ken Onion design with the new Field Strip 2 technology, which is pretty darn cool, I do have to say. I believe there is SORCERY involved, but I cannot guarantee that. What we have here is a pretty good sized knife. We'll do specs here in a moment, but it's a full 8 1/4 inches long, a little over 3 1/2 inch blade. Aluminum handles with a full, aluminum scales, I guess you should say, with a full steel liner inside, D2 blade steel. I think it's a pretty snazzy looking knife. It comes in this gray with this blade shape, and then also there's slightly different blade shape in 4.1116 steel with a coated blade and green handle. Same price for either. $99.99 is what you're going to pay for one of these. Yeah, I think it's a pretty good looking knife. I do have to say, I do enjoy the looks of it quite a bit. Its party trick is definitely the Field Strip 2 technology. We'll get to that here in a bit. I'll show you how all that works. But no lanyard hole exactly. It's just got this little cutout. It's not like a round hole. Got this little cutout there. Don't mind that. Pretty good looking knife. Price, we'll get to that as we go on, whether I think that's a value or not. I think it's fair. I don't think it's really like a steal or anything. I don't know if you call this budget or not at $100. It's kind of in that gray area. But let's do some specs and size comparisons before we get too much farther. As I said, blade length 3.6 inches, just a hair under 3.6 actually. Overall length 8 1/4 inches. You have a blade thickness of 0.13 inches, handle thickness of 0.48 inches, and a weight of 4.3 ounces, which they get the golf clap for because that is what they claim, and it is exactly what it weighed on my scales. Let's do some size comparisons here. We'll start out with our Spydercos. We have the Spyderco Manix 2. I have to scooch these up a little bit, I'm sure. I'm trying to line the pivots up, but you can't really see the pivot on this one. And your Para 3. You can see it's a pretty good sized knife in length overall. Bring out a couple of Benchmades here. We have the 940. A little bit bigger than a 940, and the full-size version of the bug out. It's bigger than most of the knives you're going to see here in the comparisons, but I like to compare it to things that some of you guys might have. And lastly, we'll bring out the Ontario Rat pair. We have the Rat Model 1. Much more similar in size to this Model 1. And the Model 2, it's obviously going to be much larger than that. It's a pretty good sized knife. I think, if I'm not speaking out of turn, the largest knife that's had this Field Strip 2 technology. Let's just get to that right off the bat before we get into any of the other individual aspects of this knife. So Field Strip started out a couple years ago. It involved a little wheel and everything. It was still really cool. You could just take the knife apart without any tools fairly easily. They all ran on Teflon washers. And pretty cool technology. You did just spin a little wheel. There was a little bit of a fiddle-faddle here and there, but it was still much quicker to take a knife apart than it was using tools. It was designed for if you're out in the field, you need to clean the knife apart, or clean the knife apart, take the knife apart and clean it. You could do it easily. This is way easier now. You see this little flipper lever here. All you do, move it up. We'll open it up first. It's easier if you do it with the knife open. Move it up, slide it forward, and it's apart. Sorcery, I tell you. Burn him. No, it's actually how it works. I hope I'm going to be able to show here on camera and manipulate this at the same time, so it's kind of awkward. But here it is in the closed position. Look very closely at this hole right here. And then, make sure I'm moving it right, you just go and see it moves the little inner liner there a little bit. Try and do it again. It doesn't stay if there's nothing there to grab it, but. And then there's another hole that does the exact same thing on the other end. It grabs these two bits. It grabs this little bit here around the pivot, and it grabs this little bit here at the back. This runs on bearings instead of the Teflon washers. On this particular model, I'm not sure if the other Field Strip 2s are going to go back to the Teflon. I think if you're really going to be out in the boonies and you really want to use this technology a lot, probably you might prefer to have the washers, but for those of us normal humans, oh, it's not going back on because I have it in the wrong position. There we go. Put it back together. Just put it back in that position. And boom. It is a closed knife working completely fine again. Pretty crazy. It is very, very quick. Just here, I'll do it again really fast. That. Just that. That's pretty cool, I do have to say. As party tricks go, that is pretty awesome, especially for $100. It's a lot of innovation for $100. I do have to say. But how does this work as a knife? Well, first of all, the blade, most important thing. You want it to cut stuff. Highs and lows of this blade. Glad to see it being D2. A lot of the more innovative CRKTs have been that 4.1116 steel, which I'm not a huge fan of. And like I said, the other variant of the Bona Fide is that 4.1116 steel. I don't really understand that. But this one is D2. And it's a really good blade shape. Just a pretty simple drop point with some little fancy swedges and stuff in it. It's a very good looking blade. It's very sharp out of the box, but it is 29 thousandths behind the edge, which is pretty thick behind the edge. This is kind of the saberish sort of grind. Yeah, I guess you call it more of a spear point than a drop point now that I look at it more. We're going to go spear point instead of drop point on this. But it slices fine. Really good piercer. A very good tip on it, I will say that. But it really isn't that much of a slicer. It's really thick behind the edge. Not sure what the decision was for that. A tougher blade, I guess. But yeah, the blade's fine. I'm glad it's D2. It is a really good piercer, but yeah, kind of wishy-washy on that thickness behind the edge. Ergos, though, are excellent, I will say. These are aluminum handles. It does have this kind of hammered finish back here to give you a bit more texture. It is maybe a bit slippery. I don't think it's that bad at all. I still think you feel pretty locked in. The jimping up here is excellent. It's just the exact right amount of, enough for some grip, but not going to tear your thumb apart. No hot spots, whatever, from this little clip here. The fairly small pocket clip it has on it. Very, very, very ergonomically good, I do have to say. How does it carry? Oh, let's get out EO Wranglers here. Oh, sorry, EO Levi's. I went back in time there. I haven't had the Wranglers for like a year. EO Levi's. It does carry very well. Pretty small pocket clip, but it's plenty big enough to do the job and hold the knife in. It is shiny. If you don't like that, well, then you knock it down with some sandpaper or something, I guess. But the flipper tab, not really much of a bother. You can definitely feel it when your little pinky goes by it, but it's not too terrible. Fairly slim. Weight 4.3 ounces. It's not like a lightweight masterpiece by any stretch of imagination, but this field strip technology does require full steel liners, so they can't do little half liners or anything like that. It requires to have full steel, so gonna forgive it. That's the price you pay to have the field strip 2 technology. As far as the action goes, I did make a change to this one. I will say right after I got it, I did take it apart and I did bend the lock bar a little bit just to get a bit more detent on it. The detent was pretty weak. It flipped okay, but it was a really lazy flipper. You could shake it out. I just took it apart, took it apart and went on the lock bar. Lots of sound effects in this video. Gave it a little on the lock bar, and now it's got pretty good detent. Still not amazing, but pretty good. But I will say on the bearings here, action is, as far as the drop shut goes, is outstanding. I do like that. I do not like the lock bar access and or lack thereof. It kind of just relies on the jimping to catch your thumb. You can see there's no cutout whatsoever. Just got this little bit of jimping sticking up there. I don't think it's going to be the end of the world in daily use, but I could see in gloves it's going to be really hard to actuate this, and it will tear your thumb up after a little while. So what are my conclusions on this? $99.99. I think the Field Strip 2 technology makes it worth it if you want that, if you feel you need that. Some people are going to feel like it's a gimmick and they don't need it. Then it's probably not worth it to you because it is D2. Aluminum scales, I mean, like I said in the beginning, the 99, I don't think it's a ripoff. I don't think it's a bargain. It's just a fair enough price, I guess. The weak detent disappointed me. I'm not going to say that CRKT always has weak detents. Sometimes they have detents that are too strong. I'm going to be doing a review of the CEO shortly. I had to back the detent off on that a little bit. They're just inconsistent with detents. That is something that I've noticed with CRKT a lot. And this one also, I got from that sample size of 2 that I got the same day, same thing. One was too stiff, one was too light. That's something that some other companies like Civivi get right all the time. CRKT is just very inconsistent, and it's not a model to model thing. It's an example to example thing. As far as other issues of fit and finish, it's been great. I think the fit and finish on this is excellent, except for those detent things, and it's kind of something I've noticed with CRKT. PLRs and stuff I've had, some of them are great, some aren't. It's just kind of all over the place with them as far as detents go. But if you have the ability to dial that in, which this is super easy to do that because it takes literally a second to take it apart, then that's not a big deal. But yeah, it's kind of my conclusion is I love this Field Strip 2 technology. This is probably my favorite knife of theirs that they have used. I was extremely impressed with it at first. I think in the unboxing I said maybe it was my favorite CRKT, but the more I used it, I think this behind the edge, that detent issue, I've mellowed on that a little bit. I still think it's a really excellent knife, and for $99.99, like I said, I think it's a fair price. I don't think it's a bargain, but if you want to try this Field Strip 2 technology, it's definitely the best knife they put Field Strip technology in so far. The home front, stuff like that, I wasn't that blown away. There was a Voxnays one they did, the Havas. That was pretty cool, but this is better than the Havas. Just it's better steel, stuff like that. It has better scales. It feels more high-end. So best knife they put Field Strip in, and that Field Strip 2 is pretty awesome. So go check it out if you're into that. I've been Brian. Have a good one.